Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ranger's Respite. I'm Philip, and today is Wednesday, which means it is time for a whiskey library review. And today I'm talking about a new acquisition. Somebody for whom I used to do a lot more freelance work, but did a job for recently. Brought this to me. Um, from South Carolina, where he was visiting family. This is Howard Distilling Company, Jimmy Red Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is a classic, 95 proof. This is batch number 59. And before I talk about that too much, if you like these videos, if you like what I do, and you'd like to support the channel, great way to do that is to like, comment, subscribe. But if you'd like a more concrete way of supporting the channel, down in the description down below, I have a link to a Spreadshirt shop where you can buy t-shirt designs to support the Virginia Whiskey Tournament, which is coming up. It's something that I've been doing for 4 years. I'm really excited to do it again. If you're not really into like that sort of thing, I also have these ballpoint twist pens and roller ball pens. These two are turned from Quercus Robert, French oak. They came from a cognac cask stave. That cognac cask held cognac for 45 years before being used to finish a peated American single malt whiskey in the Pacific Northwest. If you know, you know. Now, before I get any further, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, and I'd like to thank William for giving this to me. Now, what makes this special? Well, if you've seen the thumbnail, you will know that it's made with a heritage grain. Now, this is distilled from bourbon mash. I'm guessing high corn. They don't actually list the mash on the label, but it's distilled from a varietal of corn called Jimmy Red, which was nearing extinction in 2013. Through a lot of work and effort, in 2014, they were able to plant 2.5 acres of it, and their the size of their uh, cornfield, specifically growing Jimmy Red corn, has increased. And it was prior to most farmers going to bulk product corn, essentially like genetically modified to be the densest growing, um, least water intensive corn possible, simplest structure, et cetera, and so forth. There were a whole lot of different kinds of corn that you used for different things. There were feed corns. There were eating corn, like for like people. There was specific types of popping corn of several varieties. There were um, distilling corn, and I don't know exactly what kind of corn Jimmy Red is, but it does make for an excellent whiskey, supposedly. But let's put that to the test. I have it in the glass, and as always, put it against my big white forehead so you can see the color. It's real nice. It is a straight bourbon, so you know that it is more than 2 years old, and there is no age statement, so you know that it is more than 4. Ooh. This is so I'm not a huge bourbon guy. I mean, I have a lot of it, clearly. But I'm more of a rye fan, following rye, American single malt, etc. This has a very interesting nose. So sometimes I refer to a note like Caro corn syrup on bourbons, which is sort of a dusty, syrupy sweetness. If you've ever cooked with Caro, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've not, you may not. It's got a distinct smell. Um, this has something that's kind like Caro, but not really. It's got this nice, like, dusty sweetness, um, a slight floral note to it, but isn't like the yeast floral or I should explain. There are some yeasts that one of their byproducts is a chemical that reeds is very floral to human olfactory sense. Like it's usually sort of like multiflora rose sort of smell. There's like it's like almost spiciness to it. This is bottled at 95 proof. It is non-chill filtered. Ooh. Vanilla, like a berry custardy sort of flavor on the palate. A little bit of honey. This is a cream custard with berries in it and a graham cracker crust with like lemon zest over the top. There's a note around the edges, and this is going to sound like a complaint or an off note. It is a little bit like old machinery. So, like, if you've ever been around like a really old tractor or old like machine tools, old lathes, milling machines, that sort of thing, there's a heavy grease that's sometimes used that's it's petroleum product, obviously, but it's like almost waxy. It's sometimes used as a like preservative, not preservative, but like when you've got old machinery that's got like exposed wear points and whatnot, you can slather the stuff on it and it keeps it from like developing rust and it lubricates it, but it's like kind of a wax pasty texture and it's got this smell. It's just to me synonymous with old machinery. And now I get it a little bit on the nose, but the nose is still very, very interesting. It's that like little bit of berry, a little bit of flowery notes, some like vanilla, but there's the sweetness to it is very reminiscent to me of corn syrup, but it's not quite like Caro. I don't know how to explain. You'll figure it out. I'm sure if you ever pick up a bottle, which I'll get to that in a bit. Hmm. The finish the finish is a little more classic bourbon. Um, so the finish starts off real strong with like big oak hit. It's not a complaint. It's just an observation. Big oak hit, and then like blueberry custard, cream, honey, lemon zest, and then it's gone. It's not too long. Should it a little bit longer. This is a very decently oily bourbon, so it clings to the palate really well. If I had to guess, I would guess that it's made in a pot still based on the like oiliness of it. But I would not put money on that because I don't trust my palate that much. Mm. I I think now is a good time to get to those three questions that I always ask and answer. The first one being, do I enjoy it? Yeah, actually, I really enjoy this. It's different. It's good. Um, I just got a note of like shredded coconut. Hmm. Anyway, it's good. It's different. I think that it stands out from a lot of bourbons by like focusing on the grain profile rather than the oak and delivering on that with a distinct varietal of corn. Which gets to that question that I asked on the thumbnail. what is this heritage grain doing? And the answer is, I think, that it is providing way more flavor than your standard corn in a bourbon. So you're less reliant on the flavoring grains like rye or wheat to give it any flavor other than sweet and oak. And that means that you've got these interesting notes that, that like berry, the like really strong, like slight citrus, the floral, the honey. I think those come from the grain primarily because I think the barrel is really providing the more classic, like like graham crackery note, and actually probably the vanilla. And the graham crackery note is probably the grain because that makes more sense. The point is, you're getting more flavor from the corn than you would from, like, your yellow dent or whatever that's, the big mass produce, not super interesting corn. I will say, if you aren't a big fan of, like, sweeter whiskeys, you won't like this. Like, just on a baseline, it is a little bit sweeter, I think, and, um, a little bit gentler, I think, than a lot of bourbons. Second question, do I think it is a good value? I did not pay for this. This was a gift. Um, that said, it's about $60 a bottle, it looks like, which is a little bit pricey. This gets into the, like, beginning of the category where it's like, it really depends on what you're looking for. I think that I would pay $60 for this. I might not without trying it first. But because of what it brings to the table in terms of highlighting a heritage grain and really being like a different, still squarely in the wheelhouse of bourbon, but a different interpretation of what the corn brings to bourbon, um, I think that it's worth it for the interest factor. Also, I would just like to say the the packaging, like this, like paper off the top of it and whatnot, like just I really like. I'm a sucker for good packaging. Also, I'd like to pause for a moment and also talk about the label because I didn't and I wanted to. First off, the Jimmy Red there, that's in like raised embossed letters with like, I don't know if you can tell, like glossy ink on it. And then it's got this beautiful like drawing of the Jimmy Red corn. And there's something about this style of art on a label that sort of like reaches back into the past to grab some little bits of inspiration. And I think that it's really interesting and I really like this style of label. I if if I was putting up like label art on my wall, like if I could like get labels as posters, this would be near the top of the list because I genuinely I really like that. I know that like brand posters are tacky in one's living space, but I think that that's art and I like it. Anyway, that brings me to the third and final third and final question. Do I recommend it? Yes. Even if you're not really much of a bourbon drinker, I think this is a good different take on bourbon and an interesting usage of a heritage grain. And also they brought back a varietal of corn that was on the edge of extinction, and that in itself makes it worth supporting. Um, especially with the way that grain, particularly corn, has trended toward losing flavor and losing interest. Taking a look back at what is available in like smaller, like heritage varietals and whatnot, I think is a great way of developing flavor that the big guys just aren't doing, and you've gotta support that sort of thing because, it'll be what saves whiskey, I think, because, again, bourbon, especially from the big guys right now, a lot of it is just primarily, the oak and the secondary flavoring grain, which is why, certain brands make a big deal about, their wheated products being wheated, because corn, despite being the primary grain component, doesn't actually bring a whole lot to the table in terms of flavor. Where they're getting the flavor for their whiskey is the, rye and the wheat, or in some cases, things like triticale or oats or millet, spelt, sorghum, uh, amaranth, trying to think of other grains. Did I say spelt? Anyway, I've wasted enough of your time rambling about grains. Basically, I recommend this. I think it's a good value, and I enjoy it. So I think that covers everything. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in and listening to me ramble. And sort of be a little bit of a grumpy old man yelling at clouds about the purpose of corn and bourbon. Until next time, stay happy, stay geeks. Sláinte.